In the early hours of a hot June morning in 1932, in the dusty desert of Awali, a deep rumble rose from beneath the earth. Men stood frozen under the blazing Arabian sun, staring at a steel derrick that trembled like a living creature. Then, suddenly, dark liquid surged upward, thick, powerful, unstoppable. It was not water. It was oil. And in that explosive moment, a small island kingdom in the Persian Gulf changed the destiny of an entire region. This was Bahrain's leap into the modern age. Long before oil reshaped skylines and economies, Bahrain had been a crossroads of civilizations. From the ancient Dilmun traders who linked Mesopotamia to the Indus Valley, to Portuguese fortresses and British treaties, the islands had always stood at the intersection of global currents. Yet by the early 20th century, Bahrain was a modest pearl-diving society. Its economy depended heavily on the sea, on oysters harvested by divers who plunged into deep waters with little more than nose clips and courage. The Al Khalifa rulers governed a land of fishermen, merchants, state farmers, and tribal communities. Wealth rose and fell with the pearl harvest, and life was shaped by wind, tide, and tradition. But the world was changing. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, industrial nations were hungry for oil. The internal combustion engine was transforming transportation. The British Royal Navy had shifted from coal to oil under the influence of leaders like Winston Churchill. The United States had already struck oil in Pennsylvania and Texas. Oil was becoming the lifeblood of modern power. Geologists began to look beyond traditional oil-producing areas. The Middle East, long known for surface oil seeps and bitumen, attracted new attention. In 1908, oil was discovered in Persia, modern Iran, at Masjed Soliman, a breakthrough that electrified the petroleum world. If oil lay beneath Persia, might it not also lie beneath the Arabian side of the Gulf? Bahrain, though small, became a candidate. In the 1920s, Bahrain was under British protection. While Britain controlled foreign affairs, internal governance remained in the hands of the Al Khalifa family. At this time, the island's ruler, Sheikh Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa, recognized the economic crisis facing his people. The global pearl market had collapsed due to the rise of Japanese cultured pearls. The Great Depression further devastated trade. Poverty spread. Divers and merchants struggled. The old economy was failing. Opportunity arrived from an unexpected direction: the United States. An American oil company, the Standard Oil Company of California, SoCal, was searching for new fields. Through complex negotiations and diplomatic maneuvering involving British authorities and local leadership, SoCal secured an oil concession in Bahrain in 1929. This was a bold move. At the time, many British companies dominated oil exploration in the region. Allowing an American company into the Gulf marked a shift in geopolitical dynamics. SoCal established a subsidiary called the Bahrain Petroleum Company, BAPCO. American engineers, geologists, and workers arrived on the island, bringing with them unfamiliar machines, drilling equipment, and new ideas. They set up operations in the desert near Awali, a remote inland area chosen for its geological promise. The drilling process was arduous and uncertain. Desert heat scorched the landscape. Sandstorms battered equipment. Skeptics doubted that oil would be found in commercial quantities. But the geologists believed in the rock formations. They had studied the anticlines and subsurface structures that hinted at hidden reservoirs. Months passed. Wells were drilled and tested. Then came the 1st of June, 1932. Well number 1 at Jebel Dukhan, Mountain of Smoke, struck oil. It was the first commercial oil discovery on the Arab side of the Persian Gulf. Bahrain became the first Gulf Arab state to discover oil in commercially viable quantities. The significance of this moment cannot be overstated. While Persia had already struck oil decades earlier, Bahrain's discovery was the first on the western side of the Gulf. It proved that the Arabian Peninsula contained vast petroleum reserves. It opened the door to exploration in neighboring territories, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates. Within a few years, massive oil fields would be discovered in Dammam in Saudi Arabia, 1938, and later in Kuwait, 1938. But Bahrain was first. The oil flowed, and with it flowed transformation. Production began modestly but steadily increased. By 1934, Bahrain exported its first shipment of crude oil. A refinery was constructed on the island of Sitra in 1936, one of the earliest in the region. Tankers began docking at Bahraini ports, carrying black gold to global markets. The once quiet Gulf waters now reflected steel hulls and industrial ambition. Awali itself transformed from empty desert into a planned company town. American-style houses were built, roads were laid, electricity illuminated streets that had once gone dark at sunset. Air conditioning, unheard of in traditional homes, made indoor life more bearable in the intense Gulf heat. For many Bahrainis, employment with BAPCO offered stable wages, a revolutionary concept in a pearl-based economy dependent on seasonal harvests. Social change followed economic change. The oil industry required skilled labor. Bahrainis began receiving technical training. Schools expanded. Modern healthcare facilities were introduced. Hospitals built by BAPCO treated workers and families. Vaccination programs improved public health. Infant mortality declined. Life expectancy rose. The government, benefiting from oil revenues, invested in infrastructure roads, water systems, public services. Manama evolved from a modest trading port into a modern administrative center. Government institutions strengthened. A civil service developed. Oil wealth also altered social hierarchies. In the Pearl era, wealth concentrated among merchant elites and boat owners. With oil, wage labor created a growing middle class. New professions emerged. Engineers, clerks, mechanics, teachers. Women gradually gained increased access to education. The rhythms of desert and sea gave way to industrial schedules marked by shift rotations and refinery whistles. Yet the transformation was not without tension. The introduction of foreign workers, particularly Americans and later South Asians, introduced cultural contrasts. Company compounds reflected Western lifestyles that differed sharply from traditional Bahraini society. Segregation between expatriate and local communities sometimes created resentment. Labor disputes arose in the 1930s and 1940s as workers demanded better wages and conditions, marking the early stirrings of organized labor movements in the Gulf. Geopolitically, Bahrain's oil altered global calculations. The discovery confirmed to world powers that the Arabian Peninsula held immense strategic value. During World War II, Gulf oil became crucial to Allied logistics. After the war, American influence in the region expanded dramatically. Bahrain's early partnership with an American oil company positioned it at the forefront of a new U.S. Gulf relationship that would define 20th century geopolitics. As neighboring states struck oil in even greater quantities, Bahrain's production eventually proved smaller compared to the vast reserves of Saudi Arabia and Kuwait. Yet Bahrain retained its pioneering status. It diversified early, expanding into refining, banking, and services. Its refinery processed crude not only from its own fields, but later from Saudi Arabia via pipeline. The island positioned itself as a regional financial hub in the late 20th century, building upon the stability first made possible by oil revenues. The psychological shift within Bahrain was perhaps as profound as the economic one. For centuries, survival had depended on natural cycles: the pearl season, fishing tides, rainfall for date palms. Oil introduced a sense of control over destiny, a belief that buried beneath the sand lay a resource capable of funding schools, hospitals, and highways. The desert, once seen as barren, became a source of national pride. In Awali today, the original well stands preserved as a historical site. Visitors can see the modest derrick that changed history. Nearby, modern infrastructure hums with activity. Cars speed along highways where camels once crossed. Skyscrapers rise in Manama's financial district, reflecting sunlight like polished steel. But to understand the full magnitude of that 1,932 discovery, one must imagine Bahrain before oil, a fragile pearl economy battered by global depression, and then imagine the shock of oil erupting from desert rock, promising wages, development, and connection to the industrial world. Bahrain's discovery triggered a chain reaction across the Gulf. American geologists who succeeded in Awali moved on to explore eastern Saudi Arabia. In 1938, they struck oil at Dammam Well No. 7, unlocking what would become one of the largest oil reserves on Earth. Kuwait followed the same year. The era of Gulf oil dominance had begun. Yet Bahrain's story remains unique. It was the laboratory where methods were tested, where political agreements were first negotiated between local rulers and Western oil corporations, where a traditional maritime society first confronted the upheaval of petroleum modernity. Oil revenues funded not only infrastructure but education reforms that laid groundwork for political awareness. Bahrain developed one of the Gulf's earliest formal school systems. Intellectual life expanded. Newspapers emerged. Debates about reform, labor rights, and governance intensified through the mid-20th century. In many ways, oil did not simply modernize Bahrain economically, it accelerated social consciousness. The 1,932 discovery also marked the beginning of environmental transformation. Desert landscapes were carved by roads and pipelines. Industrial emissions altered air and coastline. Like all oil-producing nations, Bahrain would eventually confront the environmental costs of fossil fuel dependence. Still, the discovery remains a defining national milestone. Every nation has a moment when its trajectory shifts dramatically. For Bahrain, that moment was the 1st of June 1932 at Jebel Dukhan in Awali. A steel drill bit pierced ancient rock formations laid down millions of years earlier when prehistoric seas covered the region. Compressed organic matter, transformed by time and pressure, surged upward to meet the modern age. It is astonishing to consider that microscopic marine organisms from deep geological history powered 20th century transformation. The oil beneath Bahrain was older than humanity itself, yet it became the engine of cars, airplanes, and industry across the globe. Today, as the world debates renewable energy and the future beyond fossil fuels, Bahrain continues to adapt, investing in finance, aluminum production, and tourism. But the memory of that first oil strike endures as a symbol of resilience and reinvention, from pearl divers risking their lives in dark waters to engineers calibrating drilling rigs in desert heat. Bahrain's journey reflects the broader story of the Gulf, a leap from tradition into modernity within a single lifetime. In the silence before dawn in 1932, no one could have predicted how far that rising column of oil would reach into global politics, into the shaping of modern cities, into the daily lives of millions. The derrick at Awali did more than produce oil. It announced the arrival of a new era. A small island became a pioneer, a desert became a resource, and the Gulf, once a quiet maritime corridor of traders and pearl boats, became one of the most strategically significant regions on Earth.